The National Desk, America's News, now.
A Texas wildfire grows, passing 850,000 acres and impacting lives across 2 states.
One of life's most underappreciated talents is to know when it's time to move on to life's next chapter.
The longest-serving Senate leader makes a surprising decision. When will he step down? And then recent violent crimes by illegal immigrants across the country highlights the divisions of immigration policies as Biden and Trump head to the border. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. We're glad you're with us. And right now, more than 110 million Americans are under wind alerts, mostly in the east as an intense cold front moves in. Heavy rain and thunderstorms are forecast for many areas along the East Coast tonight. In the west, a severe winter storm will hit higher elevations in Washington, Oregon, and California, with up to 10 feet of snow forecast in the Sierra by Saturday night. Breaking right now, the Smokehouse Creek fire near Amarillo, Texas, is now the second biggest wildfire in state history. Look at these images. It's currently burning through multiple towns, over 1,300 square miles, one of several fires in Texas and Oklahoma, fueled by dry conditions and strong winds. Counties in the Texas Panhandle are under a disaster declaration, and thousands of buildings are without power. Officials say the fires could burn for days. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is in his final months as leader of the Senate Republicans. The 82-year-old says that come November, he will step down from his leadership position, allowing a new face to take over for the new Congress in January. He'll leave as the longest-serving leader ever in the Senate for either party, with nearly 17 years at the head of his party.
Father Time remains undefeated. I'm no longer the young man sitting in the back, hoping colleagues would remember my name. It's time for the next generation of leadership.
McConnell has had a few health scares in the past year, including at least 2 instances where he froze up while answering questions. Still, the senator from Kentucky will not resign his seat and will finish at least this term that runs until January 2027. Tonight, the star witness in the impeachment inquiry into President Biden was on Capitol Hill. Hunter Biden, whose business deals have been the focal points of the investigation led by House Republicans, met with lawmakers behind closed doors. Here's national correspondent Christine Frizzell.
He's been the centerpiece of the investigation into the Biden family, both from House Republicans and former President Donald Trump.
Where's Hunter?
Hunter Biden, the president's son, spent the day on Capitol Hill, speaking to lawmakers who have for months been working to impeach his father in what he calls a partisan political pursuit, saying, quote, "You have trafficked in innuendo, distortion, and sensationalism, all the while ignoring the clear and convincing evidence, staring you in the face. You do not have evidence to support the baseless and MAGA-motivated conspiracies about my father, because there isn't any." It's a sentiment echoed by his uncle James Biden, who testified last week, but one that stands in sharp contrast to claims Republicans have made for years that the reason Hunter Biden was able to seal so many business deals with wealthy companies in China, Russia, and elsewhere was because of Joe Biden's powerful positions in government, particularly while he was vice president. They've also insisted Joe Biden financially benefited from the deals, citing these 2 loan repayment checks Joe Biden received from his brother. They say immediately followed payments from business deals.
The basis of what we've learned is that the Bidens didn't have a legitimate business. Their business was selling access to Joe Biden, the brand.
Democrats say the evidence just isn't there, especially after a key GOP witness, Alexander Smirnov, was just charged with lying to the FBI about the matter, with evidence he was being fed information from Russian intelligence sources.
They've got nothing.
I think it is extremely disturbing to see the lack of professionalism, the lack of grounding, and the abuse of public resources and abuse of public power.
This is, of course, separate from the Justice Department investigation into Hunter Biden. Special counsel David Weiss looking into tax crimes and a gun charge against him. Dee Dee?
Christine, as far as this investigation by the House Oversight Committee is concerned, what's next?
Well, Chairman Comer said today that the next step will be a public hearing with Hunter Biden. Today's was not only behind closed doors, it was not videotaped. As he left the hearing today, Hunter Biden told reporters he thought it went great. Dee Dee?
Christine Frizzell reporting tonight from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much. Developing now, a widespread outage affecting U.S. pharmacies and health systems is now in its 7th day. The technology company Change Healthcare was hit with a cyber attack last week. Its parent company said over 90% of pharmacies are using electronic workarounds to process claims, and the rest have offline workarounds. Disruptions could become more serious if the outage is not resolved soon. The government is trying to better protect American sensitive personal data from hostile countries. President Biden issued an executive order today as there continue to be concerns data brokers and commercial entities sell people's data to countries like China and Russia. The order requires the Justice Department to issue protection regulations and high security standards to prevent access. New details. A ban on gender-changing procedures for minors will now be in place in Indiana. A federal appeals court struck down a challenge by the ACLU against the law that was set to be enacted in July of last year. Indiana now joins 20 other states with similar laws in effect that prohibit certain medicines or surgical procedures that alter the biological sex of a minor. Idaho and Montana have laws passed, but are currently temporarily blocked by lower court decisions. Arkansas's law was struck down as unconstitutional by a federal judge. Mass killer Thomas Creech will soon be off of death row following a failed execution attempt today. The 73-year-old has been in prison since the 70s and was one of the longest serving death row inmates in America. He was convicted of killing 5 people in 3 states and is suspected of killing several more. But Creech was not executed today because the medical team failed to administer a lethal injection this morning.
The team attempted 8 times through multiple limbs and appendages to establish IV access. Once the medical team leader had determined that it would be unlikely that they were going to be able to establish IV access, that was when we halted the execution.
Thomas Creech was then returned to his cell. The death warrant against him will expire tonight at midnight Mountain Standard Time. No next steps by the state have been decided on how to proceed from here. In Texas, death row inmate Ivan Cantu is still set to be executed tonight, also by lethal injection. Convicted of a double murder of his cousin and his fiancée back in 2000. Cantu maintains his innocence and claims he was framed by the real killers. The Texas Court of Appeals rejected his last appeal, but his legal team is still trying for a last-minute stay of execution.
I have hope. I have hope that something will happen, that the governor will give us a reprieve. But at this point, the system has failed us.
A New York appeals court has denied Donald Trump's motion to pay a $100 million bond in place of the more than $450 million penalty he was ruled to pay in the New York civil fraud case. Trump's lawyers said that the exorbitant costs, along with other financial restrictions, make it hard to post the full fine. But the ruling today allows Trump to apply for loans to meet the remainder of the costs. Attorney General Letitia James had asked the court to deny the appeal in full and to keep the lending prohibitions in place. She would be able to seize Trump's New York assets if he is unable to pay. Today's ruling is temporary, and the full appeal will go before a full panel of New York appellate justices. Meantime, a letter with white powder was sent to the judge who handed down that decision against Donald Trump. A court employee who is not on Judge Arthur Engoron's staff and a court officer were exposed to but injured by the unknown substance on a letter that was intercepted before reaching Judge's office. This comes 2 days after a letter containing white powder was sent to the home of Donald Trump's son, Don Jr., on Monday. President Joe Biden is promising that if reelected, he will sign an assault rifle ban. He spoke today on fighting crime and making American streets safer and touted his history of keeping dangerous weapons out of the hands of criminals.
I've taken more executive actions to stop the flow of illegal guns than any other administration in history. And we beat the NRA when I signed the most significant gun safety law in nearly 30 years.
The Supreme Court seems divided after hearing arguments today on a challenge to the federal ban on bump stocks. These devices allow semi-automatic weapons to function more like machine guns. ATF reclassified bump stocks as machine guns back in 2018. Conservative justices Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch questioned whether Congress and not the agency should have been the one to take action. Liberal Justice Elena Kagan stressed that the law central to the case was written to prevent people from getting around it. The High Court also said today they will take the case of whether Donald Trump can be prosecuted on election interference charges and indicated they will move quickly on the matter. The justices expect to hear the case in late April and will have their ruling no later than the end of June. Donald Trump's trial in Washington, D.C. remains on hold until this matter can be decided. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida has been reopened after students were temporarily evacuated because of a bomb threat this morning. It's the site of a 2018 mass shooting that killed 17 people. Officers searched the campus for nearly 2 hours. While all 3,300 students, they were moved to another location. The superintendent said they take these kinds of threats very seriously. Coming up next here on the National Desk, Biden and Trump will both be at the border tomorrow. How many migrants are expected to be stopped at the border this year? Then, unlisted additives have been found in many commonly used tattoo inks. The health risks those chemicals pose. Then, new details about how many deadly overdoses have been linked to the street drug xylazine. We'll be right back after this. Tomorrow, both President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump will separately be at the border. Biden will visit U.S. Border Patrol agents in Brownsville, Texas. Trump will be at Eagle Pass. Immigration remains one of the top issues at stake in this year's elections. Their visits come as U.S. Border Patrol Chief Jason Owens gave an update on this year's fiscal year's known apprehensions. In a post on X, he said there have been more than 890,000 apprehensions since October 1st. That puts the country on pace for more than 2.1 million apprehensions for the year. The all-time record for apprehensions was set last year at slightly over 2.2 million. And a wave of violent crimes committed by illegal migrants is drawing attention to America's immigration laws. Here's national correspondent Kayla Gaskins.
The murder of a 22-year-old nursing student in Georgia by an illegal migrant rocked the nation.
Our hearts are breaking this morning for the family of Lake and Riley.
While her death is spurring calls for an immigration crackdown on migrants who commit violent crimes.
People don't realize that a lot of these, these individuals are predators in the Latino community.
Some on the left, like California Congresswoman Katie Porter, disagree.
There is a sense of outrage, of sadness, and of loss. But I think the important thing to focus on is any one instance shouldn't shape our overall immigration policy.
Critics quick to counter, pointing out the murder in Georgia was not a standalone incident.
On January 27th, NYPD officers were attacked. At least 2 in the mob were illegal migrants from Venezuela. Then on February 14th, 3 police officers in Washington, D.C. were shot by an illegal migrant during a barricade situation. And on February 22nd, Laken Riley was murdered in Georgia. This past Sunday, a Honduran man was arrested for allegedly raping a 14-year-old and stabbing another victim in an armed robbery in Louisiana. And on Monday, a Salvadoran was arrested for allegedly murdering a 2-year-old in Maryland.
Although the vast majority of migrants in the U.S. illegally are not committing crimes, in recent weeks, Border Patrol cracking down on those with violent criminal pasts, arresting hundreds.
We cannot keep our communities safe. The president and really Secretary Mayorkas has made our cities, our sanctuary cities and other cities very unsafe.
A problem is once these people reach sanctuary cities like D.C. and New York, they can't be deported, even if they commit violent crimes, causing even some Democratic leaders like New York's Mayor Eric Adams to call for changes. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Congressional leaders of the House and Senate have a new funding deal in place to avoid the partial shutdown deadline fast approaching on Friday. But the proposed agreement only pushes the deadline to fund the Departments of Agriculture, Energy, Transportation, and the VA back until next Friday, March 8th. It keeps the tiered shutdown in place for the rest of the government with a new deadline of March 22nd. But when the House next votes, a new Democrat will be joining them. Newly elected Congressman Tom Suozzi will be sworn in tonight after winning the special election to replace George Santos in New York 2 weeks ago. With Suozzi in office, the Republicans' slim majority will fall to just 6 votes. Developing now, the Defense Department is considering dipping into the last available source of funding it has for military aid to Ukraine. The Pentagon still has around $4 billion left to use, and the situation on the battlefield is getting worse. But Congress might not replenish the money, so using it could harm U.S. military readiness. Just in, President Biden is fit for duty, according to his annual physical. The president completed his annual physical at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center earlier this morning. Dr. Kevin O'Connor wrote that Biden feels well and this year's physical identifies no new concerns. The 81-year-old Biden has faced persistent questions about his age and mental health. He says he's just fine. More than 330,000 Jeeps are being recalled because a steering wheel problem could cause people to lose control of their cars. 2022 and 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokees and 2021 to 23 Jeep Grand Cherokee L SUVs are impacted by the recall. Dealers will replace the upper control arm pinch bolts for free to fix the issue. Panera Bread is paying out $2 million to settle claims that it misled customers about delivery prices. If you ordered something through the Panera app or website from October 1st, 2020 to August 31st, 2021, you can file a claim. The restaurant is offering $12 per person or 2 vouchers of $9.50 each, but those numbers could go down. You have until June 10th to file a claim. Tattoos can contain toxic chemicals. A new study in the journal Analytical Chemistry found that 45 out of 54 tattoo inks commonly used in this country contain unlisted ingredients. The most common additive was polyethylene glycol, which can lead to kidney failure. The researchers said the goal of their work is to increase transparency for artists and clients. Cancer researchers are now looking for patients nationwide to help test a new vaccine. Medical reporter Liz Bonas shares how it could lead to a new frontier in finding a cure.
Hey there, everybody. Hello to you. This trial testing a vaccine to treat pancreatic cancer. It could have a huge impact, researchers say, in cancer not often discovered until later stages. This study is designed for those who are still candidates for surgery when diagnosed with pancreas cancer, who are also treated with chemotherapy.
And in addition to the standard surgery and chemotherapy, they also get this very personalized vaccine created using their own tumor's profile.
That means when the patient has surgery, a piece of the tumor is taken and sent to a laboratory to match the patient's own tumor signature, as it's called.
And that is used to create a personalized vaccine, which is then sent back to us, and we give 6 doses of that vaccine once a week to the patients.
Dr. Devendra Sohal of Ohio's University of Cincinnati, one of the largest Midwest sites for this trial, says the vaccine is an mRNA vaccine. That's the same kind made to work against COVID-19. It prompts the body's own cells to stimulate the immune system to fight back. Early studies to help launch this trial have shown promising results compared to the standard of care.
50% of those who received the vaccine so far have been cured, and that is a remarkable progress.
Now, we do have information online if you or someone you love might benefit from this trial. Having even this kind of success rate could really save lives in the more than 66,000 people expected to be diagnosed with this illness in the U.S. just this year. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Coming up next, an Ohio man is now charged with ethnic intimidation after a disturbing crime was caught on camera. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
Things have been steadily getting worse for the queer and especially trans community.
Heartache for LGBTQ plus families in Wineland Park, rocked by a shocking instance of hate.
Gay. Gay.
A man recorded urinating on a pride flag, shouting homophobic remarks, a buddy filming the entire thing.
Hey, Doug, give one more.
We all experienced fear. Honestly, I think a lot of us were worried that this would be an escalation.
This incident was incredibly hurtful to the individuals involved, and even more so to the entire LGBTQ community.
Tuesday, City Attorney Zach Klein announcing a list of charges against that suspect, identified in court records as Trey Fetzer. He's facing ethnic intimidation, criminal mischief, criminal trespass, and disorderly conduct.
This type of conduct will not be tolerated in the city of Columbus. Hate has no home in the city of Columbus.
While we think we're responding to a fentanyl overdose or a heroin overdose,
we start administering Narcan, we can't turn these overdoses around, and therefore there's nothing that we can do other than rescue, breathe, and do chest compressions.
Another deadly drug has hit the streets. Xylazine, or as some call it, tranq, is used to sedate large animals, but deputies say drug traffickers see it as a cheap additive for other addictive drugs. 2022 was the first year Florida required all medical examiners to record when xylazine was present in an autopsy. In the final report released earlier this month, the drug appeared in 471 overdose deaths. While there were only 2 recorded along the Treasure Coast, Palm Beach County had the 3rd highest number of xylazine-related deaths in the state. 44 people died with it in their system. Unlike fentanyl, Narcan doesn't work on xylazine overdoses.
They won't notice that anything's wrong until they overdose. Their friends will notice that. They won't until they overdose and they can't be resuscitated.
Kids not going to come to school with uniformed National Guards up in here.
4 members of the Brockton School Committee wrote this letter urging Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey to deploy National Guardsmen to the high school and other buildings. They say recent chaos is disrupting precious learning time.
But where we are in the city of Brockton, with the deficit that created this mess, we're looking for support with the National Guard to come in and act as substitute teachers, hall monitors to make sure that the high school is safe.
Mayor Robert Sullivan released a statement saying he's been talking with the police chief. He blames state rules and regulations that prevent school staff from maintaining order. As for the school committee asking for the National Guard, Governor Maura Healey's office tells NBC 10, our administration is committed to ensuring that schools are safe and supportive environments for students, educators, and staff. We are aware of concerns raised about Brockton High School and are in touch with local officials.
There needs to be something done, for sure.
Fast food chain Wendy says its new dynamic pricing plan is being misconstrued, claiming it does not plan to increase menu prices at peak times. This after the CEO announced the plan involving digital menu boards that can more easily change prices. Wendy says the boards provide more flexibility for displaying featured items and that it has no plans to raise prices when they're the busiest. We'll see it tonight.